They were prepared to account a man of the stature of Umar ibn Khattab. And you know, Rasulullah, he said about this deen, he said this ad-deen al-Islam al-Nasiyya, meaning this deen is advice for the people. And that's the way we should see it. So how do we make the enjoining of the good and the forbidding the evil? How do we do it? Does it mean now you go from here and the first girl you see who's not wearing hijab, you start abusing her? Why not wearing hijab? Yeah? Or you see a guy driving past in a nice car, you say, oh look, there he goes, drug dealer, hey, come here. What are you doing? Yeah? Is this what it means? No, because there's a way of enjoining the good and forbidding the evil. And the first thing is that we should remember that to go around talking about people is not enjoining the good, forbidding the evil. To go around and saying, you know, Flan, you know what he does? He does this. You know, Flan, yeah, you know how he made his money? Yeah? He did it by drugs. This is not accounting. This is not enjoining the good and forbidding the evil. This is slander. This is ghiba. And it's haram. This is not the way. And Rasulullah, he said, verily, in Surah Al-Nur, the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, verily those who love that the evil and indecent actions of those who believe should be propagated and spread, they will have a painful torment in this world and the akhirah. And if you go around and start talking about people and telling people about what Muslims are doing wrong, Flan does this and Flan does that, then Allah will punish you for this on the Day of Judgment. And if you go looking for faults in people, you go looking for these mistakes that people are making, or wrong that people are doing. Even on this, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, he who seeks the faults of other people, Allah will seek his faults. So if you go looking for faults in people, then Allah will look for faults in you. And whoever has Allah seeks, and whomsoever has Allah seek after his faults, he will expose them. Even if he may have committed them in the privacy. So even if you go around looking for other people's faults, Allah will find the faults in you and He will expose you. And this is telling us that we shouldn't go looking for faults in people. If people are doing wrong, we don't look for them. And there's another example of Umar bin Khattab. He was walking with Abdul Rahman bin Auf at night. Because it was his responsibility to make sure the city was protected. So he was going out walking at night and he saw a light. And he said to Abdul Rahman bin Auf, and is that not Rabi'a ibn Umayyah ibn Khalif's house? Isn't it his house? He goes, yeah. So they went close and they could hear people were drinking inside. People were drinking inside. And then what was the response? What do you think? He asked him, what do you think we should do to Abdul Rahman bin Auf? Abdul Rahman bin Auf, he turned around and he said, I think we have done what Allah has prohibited us to do. Yani, Allah has stopped us from doing this. Allah says in the Quran, La tajassasu, do not spy, and we have done this. They walked away from the house. They didn't go in because they didn't feel there was something that they should be doing. Which was spying. Sometimes it's very strange when we try to correct our children. If somebody's swearing, we correct them with the same words. We swear at them as though that's going to make anything better. So you can't do a haram action to correct a haram action. So we need to look at our own character. We need to think about ourselves and our own character. So sometimes I hear about people who you ring them up, tell them I'm not home. Somebody's ringing up for your father and you say, tell them I'm not home. What are you doing? You're lying. But yet we tell our children they shouldn't lie. Somebody knocks on the door, tell them I'm not home. Tell them I'm not home. You're asking them to lie. But you do this, you're doing the same thing that you're telling them off for. It doesn't work. So in terms of your character, you have to be the one who has the right character. You yourself have to have the correct character. And I'll just give you a small example. At the time of Harun Rashid, I believe it's the time of Harun Rashid, the Khalifa, there was a khatib in a masjid, an imam of a masjid. And he used to give lectures and all the people used to come and listen to his lecture. And In there were some slaves, some black slaves. They also used to come and listen to the lecture, the khutbah. And what happened was, one day, the slaves, the black slaves, they came to him, the imam, and said, Imam, you give a wicked sermon. But you know what? Why don't you talk about the virtues, the goodness of freeing slaves, so that we can become free? Why don't you tell these people how good it is, to release the slaves so you can become free? Yeah. So what happened? They waited the next week. They were sitting there in the Jummah, and the imam's talking. He's giving his sermon. He didn't say anything. He didn't say anything. Then the third week, nothing. The fourth week, nothing. After a few months, he gave the khutbah that talked about the virtues of releasing slaves and the reward. And the people, the black slaves who were in the mosque, they got really excited, and they came up to the imam afterwards and said, Jazakallah khairan, thanks very much. We're glad you had this sermon. What took you so long? Why did you take so long? And you know what he said? His response? He said, in my home, I had slaves, black slaves in my home. They were looking after my house. I needed to make sure that I could do those jobs and get those jobs done without the slaves. And then I had to release them. Then I gave this khutbah. Yeah? This is a sign of somebody's character. That himself, he doesn't do the same things he's asking people not to do. Yeah? So this is important for us who want to go out and give advice. And at the same time, that doesn't mean we become the haram police. We don't go around telling people, oh, this is haram, oh, don't do this. This is haram, this is haram. No, this is not the way to make da'wah. Yeah? And the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, invite to the way of your Lord with wisdom, with hikmah, with divine revelation, the Quran, and fair preaching, and argue in a way that is better. And Imam Shafi, Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal, and other scholars, they said that correcting somebody in private, is respectful. And if you correct them in public, it's reprimanding and humiliating. So if you're going to advise somebody, try to advise them in private. Yeah? When you're going to enjoin the good and forbid the evil, try to make it in private. Yeah? So just to finish off, guys, just to summarize, the discussion today was about accountability and the merits of accounting. The fact that it's an obligation on every single one of us in this room to enjoin what is good and forbid what is evil. Okay? To speak the haqq. Yeah? But think about the way that you say it without losing respect for people. Yeah? Because without this, the munkar will increase and the goodness will go. And our societies in which we live will get worse and worse and worse and worse. And there is some people who think that perhaps we can live somewhere where there is no problems. In Bolton we have an area called Ladybridge. It's a posh area where everybody tries to go and live. So nobody scratches the car, nobody pinches the car. And you think you're out of it. You're not. No man is an island. Yeah, we live in a society. Whether you live in a very posh house which is not going to get robbed, in fact you're more likely to get robbed because you have something to steal. Yeah? But if you live in a posh area, you still have to go down to the doctors, you still have to go to the hospital, children still have to go to schools and colleges. They are still going to come across the problems that we see in society. They are still going to come across people who are on zombie or they're spiced up. They're still going to come across people like that. Yeah, they're still going to face difficult times. So no man is an island. We can't get away from it. So enjoying the good, forbidding the evil is a necessity, but it's not just a necessity. It's also an obligation on every single one of us. It's a fard. Yeah? And sometimes, when I go down to the Lake Districts or I go down to Wales or somewhere like that and I see these nice houses, I think, it'd be nice to live somewhere like this. And then I think, what about enjoining the good and forbidding the evil? How will I do that? How will I call people to Islam? And how will I make sure the Muslims are on the path of Islam when I'm living so far away from the Ummah? أقول قولي هذا أستغفر الله وأستغفر الله.
Just finish off with, if you have any questions, please do ask. If not, then we can just wrap it up for today. Any questions by anybody? That's fine. So what I'm going to say.
Jazakallah for the topic. Just a question.
Yeah.
You're giving good examples, alhamdulillah, and those people have a great character and they took on the responsibility and accountability, admitting the wrongdoings. Today we have a society where if I'm accounted, I'll always, try to lie my way through it and say, oh, not admit it, and meaning it wasn't me, man, yeah, it was him, I wasn't there. But somehow trying to get excuses or lies, and if nobody, admits it. So what did you do there?
I think, our responsibility is to actually to convey the message, yeah. And our objective is to let the other person know that this is not something that's acceptable to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, yeah. And how we do that is quite important, how we package that, okay. And that's our responsibility. Now, it all depends on your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yeah, if you look at the Sahaba Ikram, when they were accounted, yeah, they didn't, feel that, sometimes they didn't even do anything wrong when they were accounted. I'll give you an example. Khalid bin Walid, he was known as the general of the Muslim armies. He never lost a battle. Never ever lost a battle in which he fought. Okay? And under Umar bin Khattab ordered him to give up the leadership of the army. And he gave it to, can't remember who he gave it to. He gave it, sorry? Abdurrahman bin Auf. He gave the leadership to Abdurrahman bin Auf. Okay, and he took it away from Khalid bin Walid. And that wasn't even something Khalid bin Walid did wrong. But what did Khalid bin Walid do? He just accepted it. He said, he is the Khalifa, and he's ordered me, and I accept. No ego, okay? He knew he was accountable to who? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He wasn't accountable to the people. So he wasn't concerned about what the people think. And sometimes that's the problem. We're too concerned about what other people will think. What your mates will say. Yeah, if somebody says something to you. Yeah, or if your parents tell you off. Yeah, you give them the eyes and you give them, all this. Yeah, in front of your friends. Why? Yeah, because it's down to the mentality of how you take on accountability, and it's about being responsible and having taqwa. Yeah, you're responsible to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's the bottom line. Yeah, so when somebody accounts you, first of all, they're not doing it to embarrass you. They're only doing it because they're trying to make you understand that what you're doing is wrong according to Islam, and you need to correct yourself. Okay, so that's the attitude that we should have as people who are being accounted. Okay, and like I said, you need to have that character to account others. So you yourself need to be on the path of Islam, okay, to be able to account others, ideally. Yeah, you can't be doing the same thing as other people are doing. You can't tell the children not to litter when you're throwing things out of the window. Yeah, it doesn't work, because they're going to pull you up and say you're doing exactly the same thing. It doesn't work. Yeah, so you have to remain an example as well.
Yeah. Just one more question, please. Another question, right? You're talking about accountability. We live in a society where there is no Islam, there's no reference to it. So if I'm out there and our mates are drinking, doing all the haram stuff, even chilling with the opposite sex, or any other haram stuff, how do I stop myself? What should get me to say, okay, this is because there's not going to be a message in there. I'm not going to get the relation. All my mates are doing it, so what should I have as a barrier to stop me?
I think one thing is that, we've got a lot of youngsters here, so their parents are going to be, probably my age or younger. Okay, it's for them first of all to give you tarbiyat at a very early age. Yeah, it reminds me of an example of a boy that a man came and complained to Umar bin Khattab about a boy and said, my son, he doesn't listen to me, he doesn't do what I tell him to do. Yeah, so Umar bin Khattab said, bring his father. So they brought his father, and he said to his son, your father's complaining that you don't do this, you don't do that, you don't. And he said, okay, but have I got a right to speak? And this is the boy. And Umar bin Khattab said, yeah, you speak. He said, well, I've got some complaints against my father. Okay, those complaints are one, he married a woman who was non-Muslim, a Majuan. Yeah, first of all, and then when I was born, he gave me the name that's the same name as a dung beetle. Yeah, and the third thing, he never taught me anything from the Quran. So Umar bin Khattab now, instead of criticizing the son, he turned to the father and he said to him, is this correct? And he said, yes. He said, well, you're at fault, not the son. You're at fault because you didn't bring him up the way you should have done. And that's a lesson for us, that when we are doing tarbiyat of our children, first of all, we must be an example to them ourselves. Secondly, we must keep a close eye on them in terms of their behavior and their actions. You know, Rasulullah said in a hadith that you are known by your friends. If we don't know who our children are hanging around with, if we don't know who their friends are, then we are guilty. Yeah, so we should know exactly what they are doing, who they are with, are they receiving the Islamic tarbiyat, okay, are they being brought up according to Islam, yeah, and the fruits of that will be, fruitful. But if that's not the case, then the result of that, yeah, is going to be negative. So, it's about us as parents knowing our children, bringing them up with the correct tarbiyat, because in this society is difficult. Understand, it is very difficult for us and our children and our youth. And they are facing all sorts of onslaughts in that society. Yeah, they're being tempted by all sorts of things. Yeah, and for them, it's about staying in good company. Yeah, understanding that Islam is the haqq. Yeah, spending time with people who will keep them in good company. There's a very good hadith of the Prophet ﷺ that talks about if you spend time with the blacksmith, you will smell of fire. And if you spend time with the one who makes attar, you will smell of perfume. So who you spend your time with is important. If you spend your time in good company, then inevitably you will be good. But if you spend your time in bad company, then what do you expect? It's very important that we need to control ourselves in terms of who we hang around with, who we spend our time with, okay, and what kind of environment we keep ourselves in. Because Shaitan is waiting there to pounce. Yeah, and he will take you down his road, given the opportunity. So it's about consciously making that effort, yeah, to stay on the path, on the haqq.
So, Jazakallah for coming. Today, obviously, as you know, is the last circle of the 4 that we've done. Inshallah, going on from here, most likely, we're going to decide what we're going to do, maybe once a month, something like that. So, whatever we decide, I'll definitely keep you all informed. If there's any topics or anything that you want to suggest, we will got my number anyway. Grab me a text that maybe you want to talk about this topic or that topic, and we can talk about those things that you are facing day in and day out. Whatever challenges that you face. If you want us to speak about them, text me or call me, come and see me, and then inshallah get those started. But I just want to say Jazakallah for coming. We go through that, came in, week out, so I appreciate that. And just to finish up on what you said, good friends are those that give good advice. So, stay around those people that are going to lead you to good. And the friends that are going down the bad path, give them good advice. Inshallah, that'll be our best. Good dua for him.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. قنا عذاب القبر وقنا عذاب الحشر وقنا عذاب الميزان. واغفر لنا ذنوبنا واغفر لنا ثبت أقدامنا فانصرنا على القوم الكافرين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.